Hi everyone, and welcome to the Kevin and Julie's Personal Well-Being and Financial Health channel. And today I will be talking to you about probably one of the most essential elements to financial health, and that is budgets. That's right, I'll talk to you about budgets. So today I will explain to you the importance of a budget, all the key elements that should be considered while creating a budget, and I'll show you a concrete example on how you can create a simplified version of it to at least get started. So, the importance of budgets. Essentially, the first thing is to provide awareness. So you can know exactly what you're making and exactly what you're spending, and to know if you're living below your means. And this is the only way you can do this. And recently, I've looked at a study from Statistics Canada that showed that the average Canadian was making $48,000 gross per year, which means that everybody really needs to track their spending because we don't have infinite money. And thirdly, having a budget really makes you accountable month to month on what you're doing, and it's all about consistency. You can't really start a budget without knowing what your net income is. And what I mean by net income is the paycheck that you're bringing home after taxes and deductions, because this is really the money that you have to work with. If your salary is inconsistent because you're a trades worker or you're being paid by commission, well then simply look at an average from the last few months and figure out what your average is. And then use your lowest monthly income in the last few months to be conservative, and you can use that figure to create a budget, and everything that you do in excess of that will only be bonus for you. Once you figured out your net income, you then have to look at all your essential expenses. Some will be fixed, meaning that they remain constant month to month, such as your mortgage payment, your rent, your car payment, or they can be variable, such as your food, your utility bills, etc. And then you add all of these up and it'll bring you a total of your essential expenses. And then you can figure out if really your expenses that you listed on there are essential and really are important for your month-to-month living, or if they are really more discretionary. For example, if you have a car payment that is very high, you can argue that a car is essential, but maybe you don't need to have as much of an expensive car as you have right now. And it's all based on that evaluation, and I'll show it to you later in my live example. Once you figured out all your essential expenses, whether they are fixed or variable, you have to then subtract your net income with your essential expenses, and then it'll give you a total, which is your unallocated money. Hopefully, that value is positive and means that you live below your means. And if that value is negative, it can be either one of two things. Maybe your income is not high enough to support your essential expenses, which means that you may be looking for another stream of revenues, or perhaps your essential expenses are maybe too high. Maybe some of these items are too expensive for your current income. That total is what I call unallocated money, which means that once you covered all your essential expenses, this is really what you have to play with for discretionary spending or to put aside for anything else. And the first thing I would recommend to you is establish an emergency savings account, which is a buffer should anything happen, whether you lose your job, your income is lower, or you have unexpected expenses coming up. And that figure should really be forgotten. When you put it in there, it's not to just have fun with it, to purchase a big toy. It's really to just keep aside for emergencies. And then secondly, a portion of that money should go towards debt repayment if you have that, first of all, or then put aside for savings or perhaps investments. And I'll talk more into that in a later video. And then once you have the unallocated money minus what you're putting in your emergency savings and towards debt repayment, this is what you have left over for discretionary spending. And I will show all of that in a live example now. Alright guys, so for you to be able to create a budget, I decided to show you a very simplified version of it with a fictional character I called Miss Penny Savvy. So the first important part of creating a budget is to understand your net income. So after all taxes and deductions, what does it come up with per month? So for Penny, she makes $36,000 net income per year, which makes up to $3,000 a month. So she put it right here. And then she started to compile all her essential expenses, starting with the fixed ones that are constant month to month and that are essential for living. So she has $1,000 for her rent, 250 for her car payment, 100 for her insurance, and 50 for her cell phone bill. And then she started to look at her previous month's trends when it comes to variable expenses such as food, gas, utilities, and her credit card payments because she has a bit of debt to pay off. When you total all of these together, it comes up to a total of $2,350. So then all you need to do is subtract your income, your net income, from your essential expenses, and you have $650 of unallocated money. Then at this point, you can decide to spend it all because it's unallocated, but I would not advise that. As I was explaining earlier, it's always a safer approach to create an emergency savings account, which is what Penny is doing here. And she decided to put 150 per month towards that because she wants to have 3 to 6 times her essential expenses. So then what Penny decided to do is put $100 extra against her debt repayment because if you remember earlier, she has credit card debt. So by paying off $100 more, she'll eventually pay this debt quicker, which will free up another $300 here against her essential expenses, which will free up more money later on. And then after that, because she's getting used to putting $100 aside more for debt repayment and not using it for her spending, she's going to put $100 more towards her savings when the debt repayment is done. And that's going to be for a rainy day fund and to invest maybe later on or whatnot. So that's up to her, but she's going to put that money aside. Once you subtract the unallocated money with 150 and 100 here, it leaves her $400 a month of discretionary spending that she can do whatever she please. Of course, if she decides to allocate more towards here or there, it's more to her benefit. And when you do this exercise, I encourage you to put as much as you can here because it's just going to benefit you in the long run. There you have it. This is a very simplified version of a budget. Of course, in your case, if you're going to do that, your fixed expenses and variable expenses will vary. It won't be the same amounts, it won't be the same items, but you have to make sure that they are essential expenses. If you arrive to a positive amount, like Penny, who has $650 to play with, then that's good. You have money left over every month after everything is paid off. But if your amount is in the negatives, meaning that your essential expenses are above your net income, it probably means that you're living over your means, and that is where you get in trouble. So for that, you should lower your essential expenses, revise this, try to lower something, or maybe ask yourself if it is indeed essential. Or perhaps the other way around it is to try to increase your income to compensate for a higher cost of living. And just a quick note, guys, the reason I put credit card here in essential expenses is just because when you have debt, guys, you have to make your minimum payments every single month to not affect your credit score, and that's very important, even though it's not an expense per se. So this is what Penny does here. She's putting her minimum payment of 300 because she has more debt. So I kind of wanted to have a realistic version of it. And also I just wanted to point out that even though I said that net income minus essential expenses gave you unallocated money, and that means if the value is positive that you are living below your means, it doesn't mean that you can spend more than the $400 here that you have for discretionary spending, because this will be very dangerous for you. If you exceed the total that brings up to your net income, it means that automatically you'll have to compensate this by debt, and then this is not healthy at all for your finances. So make sure to stick with that number and really not exceed any of that discretionary spending, whatever you like to do, whether it's restaurants, cinemas, going to the bar, purchasing clothes, makeup, etc. It really has to stick within that figure, because as soon as you get into debt, this is when it gets very costly for you. Okay, so make sure to not exceed this. If you do, then you are also living above your means. So just to let you know, guys, I will put this template in the description below so you can easily copy paste it either in Excel, a Word document, or even on your cell phone for your use. And it'll definitely help you get started, and I really hope that you use it. Another thing that's important to cover in budgets is the annual expenses that are easily forgotten. That would be property taxes or maybe your car insurance that you're paying in lump sum annually. These you have to consider in your budget as well. So what you do is take that annual figure divided by 12, and that's your monthly amount that you should set aside when that payment comes about. So now you've seen what Penny does, and I really hope and encourage you to establish your own budget and revise those figures for yourself. And as I said, this is a really simplified version of it to really help you get started. And the key here is really to be consistent about it. And it's not made to be a one-time thing. So be consistent, stick with those numbers that you figured out. If you decided to set aside $200 for an emergency savings account or $100 for your savings, please make sure to really stay with that amount and never lower that figure. And whatever extras that you make, well, put it aside. It really will help you live below your means, and this is really the takeaway of what I'm trying to show you in this video. So with that said, you guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. It would really mean a lot if you would like this video, press the like button, and subscribe to our channel. And as always, please comment in the sections below. I will definitely take a look at it and I will reply. If you have any ideas and suggestions to share, if you want to share what you do for your own budget, it would be really interesting to see. So from our living room to yours, I really wish you a good night.